0:30 local time. The U.S. aircraft carrier moves ahead at a steady pace. Engines are settled. The flight deck is quiet. Watch conditions are routine. No alerts. No heightened posture. Another transit is being entered into the ship's schedule, minute by minute. Then, at 0:42, a new symbol appears on the surface radar. A single contact. Long range, low speed, nothing unusual for these waters. Surface traffic comes and goes all the time. Fishing vessels, commercial ships, patrol craft passing in the distance. The contact is tagged and tracked. Nothing more. At 1:18, a second contact appears. Different bearing, same general signal type. Still far out. The watch officer gives the screen another look. Two contacts now, separated by miles of open water. No converging course yet, no spike in speed. Everything still falls within normal parameters. At 2:05, a third contact appears. This one is closer and closing faster than the others. Not aggressive, just deliberate. 3 contacts, 3 bearings, 3 separate tracks. Inside the Combat Information Center, the mood changes. Not to panic, but to sharper focus. Tracks are numbered. Bearings are read aloud. Distances are called out and confirmed. No one raises their voice. By 2:40, a pattern begins to take shape. The 3 contacts are no longer moving independently. Each makes a slight course adjustment. 5 degrees here, 7 degrees there. Not enough to trigger alarms, but enough to matter. The CIC plots the geometry. The tracks are beginning to converge. Not rushing, not charging, just closing in. At 3:10, the distance between the outer contacts and the carrier drops below the first advisory threshold. Still safe, still lawful, still quiet. On the bridge, nothing changes. The carrier holds course and speed. No evasive move, no visible reaction. The deck crew continues its routine as usual. At 3:30, the CIC confirms what the geometry already suggests. The 3 surface contacts are forming a loose triangle. Not a patrol line, not parallel tracking, but a shape. By 03:55, electronic support measures sharpen the picture. The emissions are faint, but consistent. Military signatures, surface naval vessels, not civilian ships. The contacts are reclassified. At 4:12, nationality is confirmed, Iranian Navy. No announcement echoes dramatically across the ship. No pause for effect. The information is logged, repeated once for confirmation, and passed up the chain. 3 Iranian naval vessels, 3 vectors, 1 carrier. At 4:20, the carrier's closest point of approach projections are recalculated. The math tightens, the numbers shrink. Still no immediate danger, but clearly no coincidence. The watch team requests permission to hail. Authorization is granted. At 4:28, the first radio call goes out. Clear, neutral, professional. No response. The radio stays silent. The carrier does not alter course. It does not speed up. It does not slow down. The ship continues forward exactly as it has for hours, as though nothing has changed. But inside the CIC, every screen now matters. By 4:30, the geometry is impossible to ignore. The 3 Iranian vessels are no longer simply approaching. They are positioning. Each holds a different range, a different bearing, a different angle, together shaping the space around the carrier. Not close enough to force contact, not distant enough to dismiss. The sea remains calm. The sky remains clear. No visible weapons, no targeting radar cutting through the air. Just 3 hulls, 3 vectors, and intent measured in degrees and minutes. This is no longer routine traffic. This is the point where attention turns into full concentration, where every second matters more than the one before it, and the box has only just started to close. At 4:40, the geometry tightens again. All 3 Iranian vessels adjust speed within the same minute. Not a burst, not a sprint, just enough throttle to stay aligned. The carrier's speed remains unchanged. The gap begins closing faster than predicted. Inside the CIC, updated vectors glide across the displays. Bearings are recalculated. Closest points of approach redraw in real time. The triangle becomes sharper. At 4:45, the easternmost Iranian ship shifts course 6 degrees to port. A small move, easy to overlook, but the effect is immediate. The open water on that side narrows. The shape now feels deliberate. By 5:05, the southern contact mirrors the move, 5 degrees to starboard. The third ship holds steady, locking the formation in place. This is no longer chance. At 5:30, the CPA drops below the advisory threshold. Still safe, still lawful, but trending the wrong way. The margin for error gets smaller with every passing minute. On the bridge, the carrier still does not respond. No helm order, no course correction. The wake behind the ship remains straight and unbroken. The message is silent, but unmistakable. At 5:50, the CIC requests another recalculation. The math confirms it. If all three contacts maintain their current vectors, the carrier will be boxed in from three sides within minutes. Not trapped, but restricted. At 6:10, the first clearly deliberate reshaping move becomes obvious. The Western Iranian vessel adjusts heading again, this time by less than 4 degrees. Subtle, precise. The triangle compresses. The watch officer logs it. No alarms sound. No one announces danger. But every set of eyes in the CIC is now fixed on the same patch of screen. At 6:30, the first hail is transmitted. Calm voice. Standard phrasing. No accusation. The carrier waits. No reply comes back. At 6:55, the Iranian vessels hold their course. They don't pull away, and they don't rush forward. They simply maintain steady pressure. The silence lingers. By 7:10, the triangle is no longer loose. Each ship now plays a clear role. One forward left, one forward right, one trailing slightly behind. The geometry quietly restricts maneuvering space without crossing any obvious boundary. A textbook example of controlled gray zone pressure. At 7:40, electronic monitoring picks up a change. Iranian surface radars settle into stable tracking modes. Not targeting, not fire control, but no longer passive. They are observing closely. The CIC logs the shift, timestamped and recorded. By 8 o'clock, distance updates come faster. Every 30 seconds, each call tighter than the last. The water between the ships visibly shrinks. Still, the carrier remains steady. No aircraft launch, no weapons positioned, no visible change in posture, just discipline. At 8:20, the formation nears completion. From above, it would look precise. 3 gray hulls arranged to limit space without touching it. From the bridge, it feels different. The horizon is no longer open. Steel now fills it from 3 directions. At 8:40, the CIC marks the moment. Box geometry established. The phrase is spoken once, calmly. Then the room returns to quiet focus. At 8:50, projected exit paths are reviewed. All of them are narrow. All require careful timing. None are impossible, but none come easily. At 9 o'clock, the formation holds. No sudden movements, no visible weapons, no radio chatter, just steady, deliberate pressure. 3 Iranian warships, 1 U.S. aircraft carrier, and a box that is now fully formed. The situation crosses an invisible threshold, not into immediate danger, but into something unavoidable. From this point on, every action will be interpreted. Every second carries more weight than the last. The tension doesn't spike, it settles, and that makes it heavier. At 9:20, the margins shrink even further. The updated closest point of approach falls below standard navigational comfort. Still not a collision risk, but close enough that any adjustment now has consequences. The distance between the hulls is no longer theoretical. It's visible. Distance updates now come every 15 seconds. Inside the CIC, no one relaxes. Every station is active, every display aligned. The room is quiet in the way only experienced crews understand. No wasted motion, no unnecessary words. On the bridge, nothing changes. No shift in speed, no change in heading. The wake behind the carrier remains straight. At 9:25, the Iranian ships maintain near-perfect spacing. Their movements are smooth, controlled, practiced. No urgency, no panic. Just steady pressure applied with precision. By 9:50, the forward-left vessel inches closer. Meters now, not miles. A small adjustment, but enough to tighten the geometry again. Open water narrows further. The carrier still does not respond. At 10:00, the formation reaches parallel alignment along 2 axes. One ship slightly ahead, one slightly behind, one offset to the side. The box is no longer closing, it is holding. The carrier is constrained without being stopped. At 10:20, a second radio call goes out. Same tone, same calm delivery. This is a United States Navy vessel operating in international waters. Your maneuvers are unsafe. Acknowledge. Again, silence. No reply, no objection, no explanation. At 10:40, the electronic signals from the Iranian ship stabilize once more. Still not targeting, but clearly intentional. Carrier systems record everything: frequencies, timing, signal patterns. The data continues to build. At 11:05, the carrier's command team reviews options. Nothing is announced. Nothing is visible. Every possible move is weighed against a single rule. Do not escalate unless forced. So the carrier holds steady. At 11:30, the distance between the ships closes to clear visual range. Details on the Iranian decks become visible through optics, antennas, railings, silhouettes of crew moving calmly. No weapons are being handled, no crowded decks. Everything remains controlled. At 11:55, the tension reaches its peak without a sound. The carrier is surrounded not by force, but by intent. This isn't a test of firepower. It's a test of discipline. At 12:10, a quiet order is given. Spin up the helo. Below deck, engines begin to turn. Rotor blades remain folded. The Seahawk doesn't lift off. Not yet. But the sound carries just enough to be noticed. The Iranian formation holds. At 12:40, the geometry tightens one last time. The trailing vessel edges forward, compressing the space behind the carrier. For a brief moment, all three ships are exactly where they want to be. This is the apex. At 1300, the carrier's movement is mathematically constrained on three sides. Any sudden maneuver would demand immediate reaction from everyone involved. The margin for error is now measured in seconds. Still, the carrier does not turn. At 1325, the Iranian ships lock into position. No further adjustments, no increase in speed. The formation holds steady. Time seems to stretch. This is the most critical moment, not because of an immediate threat, but because of restraint under pressure. No one blinks. No one gives ground. At 1350, the Seahawk's rotors spin faster. The aircraft stays on deck, secured, ready. The message is subtle but impossible to miss. Presence without provocation. At 1410, the Iranian vessels hesitate, not in any obvious visual way, but in the numbers. Their spacing wavers by meters. Their timing slips by fractions of a second. Tiny deviations, almost invisible, yet unmistakably real. By 1430, the situation reaches peak tension. 3 naval vessels, 1 carrier, no exchange, no dramatic signal, just steel, geometry, and time. From here, something has to shift. At 1438, the balance begins to change. Nothing dramatic happens. No alarms, no sudden turns. Just a slight change in rhythm, subtle enough to miss unless you are watching closely. Inside the Combat Information Center, the spacing indicators update. One of the 3 Iranian vessels is no longer perfectly aligned. The deviation is small, measured in meters, not ship lengths, but it breaks the symmetry. The box is no longer rigid. At 1445, the order is given. Launch the helo. The Seahawk lifts cleanly from the deck, rising just above the carrier's island before moving forward into open air. It does not rush. It does not climb high. The aircraft levels out low over the water, rotors steady, profile unmistakable. This is not escalation. This is presence. At 1505, the helicopter establishes a wide orbit, keeping a safe distance from all 3 Iranian vessels. Its sensors come online quietly. Cameras begin recording. Time, position, bearing, everything is documented. No visible armament is emphasized. At 1520, a brief controlled laser pulse appears on the water near the nearest Iranian ship. It does not linger. It does not threaten. It simply signals awareness. The message is precise. We see you. At 1540, the Iranian formation reacts, not all at once and not decisively. The eastern ship holds course. The southern ship shifts slightly to avoid the helicopter's flight path. The third ship, the one already out of alignment, lags again. The delay is small, but it matters. At 1600, the Combat Information Center confirms it. The triangle is deforming. The carrier continues straight ahead, unchanged. The helicopter maintains its orbit. Pressure remains, but now it is uneven. At 1620, the misaligned Iranian vessel reduces speed slightly. Not a retreat, just caution. The effect is immediate. The spacing between hulls increases on one side of the formation. A gap begins to open. At 1640, the 2 remaining Iranian ships try to compensate, adjusting course to preserve the box. But their movements are no longer perfectly synchronized. Each correction creates another. The geometry starts to weaken. At 1700, the helicopter shifts position slightly, staying clear, staying visible. Its sensors remain fixed on the formation. No radio calls are made. No warnings follow. Silence does the work. At 1710, the gap widens enough to register clearly on the screens. For the first time since the encounter began, the carrier's projected maneuvering space expands. Not freedom, but room. At 1730, the Iranian ships hesitate again. One adjusts heading to maintain distance from the helicopter. Another holds position to avoid cutting too close to the carrier's bow. The box can no longer be sustained without increasing risk. At 1745, the helicopter makes one slow, deliberate pass, then resumes its orbit. The move is recorded from multiple angles. Every course adjustment, every hesitation, every shift is captured and logged. At 1800, the formation breaks. Not suddenly, not dramatically. One Iranian vessel eases back, increasing separation. The second follows seconds later. The third keeps its distance, no longer trying to close the space. The box is open. The carrier has not changed course. It has not reacted outwardly. It has not raised the temperature of the moment. But the balance has shifted. The pressure has reversed. And from here, disengagement is no longer optional. It is the only path left. At 1810, the tension begins to drain away. The change is gradual. No sharp turns, no visible sign of defeat. Just distance, measured, deliberate, undeniable. The Iranian vessel that first slipped out of alignment slows further, widening the gap by hundreds of meters. The second follows, easing off its previous vector. The third holds position but no longer presses forward. The box is gone. Inside the Combat Information Center, the displays confirm it step by step. Spacing increases. Closest point of approach projections stretch outward. The geometry that had held the carrier in place for hours dissolves back into open water. On the bridge, the carrier stays on course. No victory turn, no burst of speed, no visible acknowledgement of the shift. At 1820, a radio transmission breaks the silence for the first time. It is brief, controlled, non-confrontational. The Iranian voice makes no accusation. It offers no threat. It gives no clear explanation. The message is logged and acknowledged without reply. At 1835, the Seahawk completes its final orbit. Its sensors continue recording until the last moment. Then, smoothly, the helicopter turns away from the formation and heads back to the carrier. The rotor tone never changes. The flight remains calm and routine. At 1850, the helicopter settles back onto the deck. Blades slow, engines wind down. No applause, no commentary. Just another landing entered into the day's operations. At 1910, the Iranian vessels continue to separate. One vessel turns away from the carrier's path. Another drops farther behind. The third keeps its distance on a parallel course, no longer trying to shape the space. The sea begins to open again. At 1930, the closest point of approach moves back beyond standard safety margins. Distance updates slow down. Inside the Combat Information Center, the rhythm returns to normal. By 2000, the carrier has fully passed the area where everything unfolded. The horizon ahead is clear. The wake behind remains straight. The Iranian ships are now just contacts. Still tracked, still monitored, but no longer a factor. At 2030, the situation is officially downgraded. Systems remain ready, but the overall posture eases. No new orders follow. At 2100, the Iranian vessels fully disperse. Each takes a different heading. None cross the carrier's path. No final radio call, no closing exchange. The encounter ends quietly. At 2130, the logs are finalized. Timelines are exact. Data is archived. Every course adjustment, every signal, every second of pressure is preserved. Not as a story, but as a record. At 2200, the carrier continues its transit exactly as planned hours earlier. Same speed, same heading, same mission. No direct engagement, no contact between ships, no rules broken. But the outcome speaks for itself. 3 warships attempted to limit the movement of one carrier using positioning and sustained pressure. In the end, they disengaged without reaching that goal. The carrier never responded with force because it didn't have to. This wasn't about firepower. It was about discipline. And discipline held. The sea returns to calm. The horizon clears. The carrier moves forward, unchanged, unchallenged. And the message delivered without a single shot carries farther than anything else ever could.